Why is it that it seems like the expectation that all new games need to be bigger and better than whatever came before it, whether it be in the same series, in the same genre, or just anything that's remotely around it? I don't get it. We don't need to be constantly chasing new highs in terms of production quality or the fidelity of the game, the freaking resolution, the frame rate. I mean, it's important, but we've hit 60, 60's great, 60's fine. You don't need to keep aiming higher. You don't need to keep aiming past freaking 1440p, but yeah, no, we gotta hit a solid 4K. It's gotta be perfect. Like, can we just... There's, games are just having so many problems launching now, especially on PC, where it's like, why are we demanding such an ever-evolving nature from everything? Why does everything need to be like, oh my god, I can't believe this sequel is not as big as it was in the previous game. That's ridiculous. That's unacceptable. It's not better in every single way. Fuck you, whoever made it. You suck. The boat animation in God of War Ragnarok is the same animation that they used in 2018. So, you know what? The game's horrible. I can't even parody it without just like being mad at myself for saying the words. Games used to be more iterative, and there's nothing wrong with iteration. Majora's Mask was basically just freaking Ocarina of Time, except it was a little bit darker and they wrote in some extra characters and they made some storylines that went in weird directions and it was a little creepy, but it looked basically almost exactly the same. It only took a couple years to come out. What's wrong with that? They did that with the Crash Bandicoot games. They did that. They iterate with Mario games all the time. Iteration can be totally fine. We don't need to constantly be pushing every aspect of the industry forward with everything. You don't need to apply the same expectations to every developer. Not every developer should feel the need to have to make their game significantly better looking every single time. Why can't we have more sequels to things that are just more of the same, but they try some new creative things? What's wrong with that? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. But for some reason, it will get criticized. But you know what else will get criticized? When a game doesn't work, because there's so many expectations put on everyone, every developer. Every developer has to outdo themselves at least 3 times. Like there's some specific number. This game needs to be exactly this much better than the last one, or it's actually worse. If a game comes out 2 years later and it's equally as good, it's garbage. Oh, it just I think people have these expectations because the technology surrounding video games has constantly been quickly on an upwards trajectory. And that's great. That's great. That's just how technology's been. But it doesn't need to constantly follow that trajectory, okay? It doesn't work that way. The jump from the N64 and PS1 to the PS2 and the GameCube, pretty substantial. Obviously the one before that was a very substantial jump going to 3D. And then as we go and then we get to HD, another pretty substantial jump. And then, you know, it starts to slow down when we're going from the PS3. We're not gonna include the Wii here. The PS3 and the 360 generation into the PS4, Xbox One. It's not as substantial of a jump anymore. And then again, when we get to the PS5 and the Series X, it's not as substantial of a jump, but that's fine. People accept that. People are still buying these consoles. But for some reason, when it comes to the games, it's like, no, you need to keep following that trajectory. This needs to be bigger and better. This map needs to be bigger. There needs to be more things in it. The animations need to be freaking different every time, and you need to be putting equally as much work into it. You can't be taking assets that you've used before, even if you've perfected them and we loved them when they happened before. Now they're garbage. Can we just calm down, please? Maybe? This goes for live service games. This is a very sharp turn, but I had another point that I wanted to make that basically made me think of this topic. Why can't normal multiplayer games exist anymore? Whenever a game comes out, I feel like something like Halo Infinite, which I will admit I have not played, but it seems to be that the consensus is that it's actually a pretty great game, but its live service elements are lacking. They're not supporting the game enough. They're not updating and adding things to it enough. But why is that all that matters now? The thing that matters is supposed to be the game itself, how it feels, how it plays. That's what matters. That's the foundation. These other things are additive. But now it seems like with the popularization of Fortnite Apex Legends, Destiny, Rocket League, Fall Guys, games that have a foundation that is to varying degrees good, but the reason that they stick around is because these companies just keep freaking pumping things into it constantly. Obviously, Fortnite is the biggest offender of this, and I feel like one of the biggest influences on the overall landscape because they have so much money that they can constantly just be pumping resources into it and constantly adding new things. And for some reason now, that's all that people care about. Before I was talking about games being bigger and better, and this kind of goes in the same direction. It's like, why can't you just enjoy a game for what it is and play it for as much as you want? Older multiplayer games weren't constantly having things added to them, but people kept playing them because they were fun games to play. That is kind of the point, is it not? You don't need to be given new things for something to remain interesting. And if you do, that's because the game itself is not good. That's the only explanation that there is. It's a crutch. And if you require that crutch in whatever game that you're referring to that you think needs more content, the game's just not very good. I hate to break it. Anyways, this is my little rant. I'm tired of games coming out broken, but I'm also tired of people blaming the developers. Maybe the overall mass of people need to just stop expecting such leaps constantly, and people will get the message, publishers and developers will get the message that it's okay to iterate and not to try to significantly outdo yourself every time. Stop trying to push the industry so far forward. Why don't we just relax a little bit? The games look great. We're at a great point. You don't have to keep going so freaking aim so high every single time. Let's just relax and be creative in the realm that we're in. And maybe we won't have so many broken messes. And also just with the whole, like, people feeling entitled to constant updates now because of things like Fortnite. Like, it's just getting really old. People looking at any game that isn't being pumped with new stuff constantly as a letdown when that used to not matter and it shouldn't still matter. Yeah, it's just a little sad. I want good games to get the recognition they deserve. I don't want them to be bogged down with insane expectations. I'm going to start ranting, so I'm going to end the video, but let me know what you think. Thank you to the people that support me on Patreon: Kinoth, Echo, Mex, Cookie, and Scion, and I will see you next time.